I think in COVID, some businesses were lucky and did really, really well. And actually it's when everyone's like, oh, the market's, and I know I said it earlier, but like, oh, the market was tough for recruitment last year. Like that is just life. And I think people that are like, oh, I didn't hit my target because the market was really tough. That's not an excuse. Like it is tough for everyone, but like people are doing it. So what are you doing to make that happen? You do have to take it with a pinch of salt on LinkedIn. Like it's not all that perfect. And I think sometimes like LinkedIn is being seen of, oh my gosh, your life is perfect. You were able to do that before work. Like, how do you get up that early? You've won so much business, that people do only shout about the good things. And I think it's really important to remember that like, it is hard out
Maybe
there.
you should break that stigma. Maybe I want to see the next one.
Me sobbing.
Big sweaty legs. You know? Hi Tara, welcome to the corner. Thanks for joining us.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome. So for those that don't know, you specialise in placing salespeople specifically within the SaaS industry, which is obviously us as well. So can you talk to us a little bit about the company you're currently working for, what kind of applicants you're kind of representing, and the clients you're working for to place those people as well?
Absolutely. So Venatrix is a specialist recruitment organization where we focus on helping SaaS businesses to build their go-to-market teams. So anywhere from SDRs to sales leaders. Mm-hmm. We're female founded. So our amazing CEO and founder, Elaine Tyler, founded the business 8 years ago with investment from James Khan from Dragon's Den. So super exciting name for us. In terms of my job within Venatrix, so I'm an account executive where I specialize in finding SaaS businesses that Venatrix are then going to support through their growth. So we work with companies that are anywhere from pre-seed to Series C, but we have also got companies that have gone right the way through to IPO, where we're still running SDR recruitment campaigns for them.
Right, okay. So there's various different sizes of teams that you're working with and stuff as well.
Yeah, so we do founding member SDR. So someone that is going in, first SDR on the ground to scale that team, to also people that are joining SDR teams of 100 people.
Great. You've been there a while, but you did break away from Venatrix for a bit, didn't you? And went to the dark side.
Went to the dark side of SaaS, didn't I?
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I graduated from university, didn't know what I wanted to do, had done a marketing placement at a cybersecurity company where I'd sat directly with my back to the sales team, and they were the ones that were making commission, buying new cars, going on the incentive trips, just doing all the cool things. And I was like, that's what, not that marketing wasn't cool, but I was like, that's what.
You just said, this is not fair.
I was like, that's the side that I want to be on. Yeah. So realised definitely wanted to work in sales, and went to an assessment day that Venatrix were hosting to be an SDR. I then got asked at the end if I'd consider recruitment. So I said yes, and felt really inspired and ended up joining the team at Venatrix.
So you initially started talking to them about them potentially placing you somewhere.
Yes. So that's why I went to the assessment day. Right. And then at the end of that, the CEO sat me down and said, want to talk to you about an opportunity. And she started giving me all these facts. And she was like, do you know what company it was? It is. I was like, no, I've got no idea. And she was like, it's Venatrix. Then I went through the interview process, got the job, and started at Venatrix. I think I got to a point where I was like, what is the next step for me here? When you work in a small startup business, there's not always that exactly laid out progression path for you. And I've been lucky enough that based on my skill set, I've been able to move into different jobs within the business. But I got to that point where I was like, is the grass greener? Do I want to make that move?
So you've tried on a few hats then as well, haven't you?
So I was like, do I want to be a manager? Do I want to be a manager? Do I want to be an IC? What do I want to do? And I was like, no, I'm going to go be an AE in a SaaS company. So was lucky enough to join OneUp as an AE. It was amazing to see it from the other side and actually get a real understanding of a business that's going through funding, working with SDRs, understanding the problems that they go through, what makes a good SDR. But I missed the feeling of when a candidate gets a job and you're giving them that job offer, that screaming excitement that they give you of oh my gosh, I've got the job. And then 3 years later, when they're a sales manager of an entire sales team in London, I just feel like you don't get that. Well, I didn't get that when someone signed a contract And then it was like, great, the deal's done. I was missing that like internal feeling that you get of like changing someone's life.
So obviously one up sales, obviously we know, but obviously for the listeners, that's it's basically a gamification software that takes data from CRM phone systems and stuff and basically visualizes it, tracks KPIs, incentives, all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And that SDR role was mainly focused on selling to recruitment businesses?
Yes, correct. So the SDR team would focus on booking meetings with the recruitment companies. And then as an AE, I was doing the demo of the software, which selling something like that last year was really difficult. Whenever recruitment was really hard last year. Companies didn't want to spend lots of money. So yeah, it was definitely challenging.
So was that all new business focused as well?
All new business focused.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we know. Yeah, that was a tough gig. Definitely a tough gig last year. And had you demonstrated products or anything like that before? So that was like your first taste of it as well.
Yeah, and it was remote, which was interesting for me. So I'd started at Venatrix pre-COVID, where we did 5 days in the office. You just didn't work from home. It wasn't even a thought that you'd asked to work from home. You're just in the office every day. And it was my decision that, like I said, yeah, I'll be totally fine remote. And I think also that was something I did find.
Do you miss that
really
kind of
difficult.
camaraderie and stuff? We've talked about that a few times on the corner from a few different types of access, from a HR point of view, from obviously a line manager's point of view, from an interview point of view, and all this different stuff. But I think definitely we were talking about it on the way in, weren't we, today? That, you know, I feel quite fortunate that I live local to the office and I can come in and I build that camaraderie with, you know, staff, and I've got obviously got a team that, you know, we all bounce off each other. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that. So what are you doing now? Are you in the office more so than not with Venatrix?
Hybrid, so we do 2 or 3 days in the office. I think the thing with living in London is I'm actually meant to be on the train for like 8 minutes to Waterloo and then the tube for 5 minutes, but the whole journey ends up taking like 45 minutes, nearly an hour. And it's that time that you can actually spend doing something else. That's what frustrates me the most, is if I could like fly into the office, I'd go in every single day, or if it was a 15-minute drive.
You mean you haven't got yourself a helicopter?
Haven't got myself a helicopter.
We'll reach out to James Carn.
That's on the list.
Just James Carn, let's get Venatrix a company helicopter.
Then I'll be in every day. But that's all that annoys me, is that if I have to go into and I like going into the office, but you've got an hour commuting in the morning, an hour commuting after work. That's 2 hours that I can walk the dog, go for a run, go to a gym class, do something else that isn't being sat on a train.
You're training for a marathon at the moment, aren't you?
I am, which everyone on LinkedIn knows.
Yeah. I'm not seeing you shout about it. So yeah, it's important for you to find time outside of, you know, commuting to go for a run in the morning, like in the afternoon. Or
and we are super flexible as well. So if you end up taking a slightly longer lunch break, or like, as long as you do what is required of you.
I think companies have to be now, don't they?
Yeah.
Right.
I think
do you find that with your clients as well? Do you find that what the roles they're offering, because sales can be a tough gig, right? You know, it's always this, and again, we've talked about this on the corner, it's that always on kind of mentality. You know, you can't really step away from sales. Like if you're going on holiday, quite often people are checking their emails and that kind of stuff. But do you feel like your clients have changed a bit more of a flexible working setup as well?
I think SaaS companies are more flexible. I think they've very much got that like forward thinking mentality where it's get what you need to do done and it's no questions asked. But I have also heard stories where it's like you have to take a lunch break from 11:45 to 1:45, and that's that. Other than that, you're sat at your desk making this many calls in this many time blocks. So I think there's still work to be done. And I also think a lot of people do push the boundaries of that trust that then ruins it for everyone else.
And do you find candidates are asking more about that as well during the qualification process and stuff? How flexible are they?
Yeah.
I work from home.
And so many like graduates now are saying, I want remote working. And we're finding a lot more people that have worked in offices previously are like, no, I definitely want an office. That's a non-negotiable for me. So it's interesting that I'd say like the younger generation want to be remote and want that flexibility to go and work in different countries. But people that are my age want to have that office environment.
Yeah, it's there is definitely an age demographic where that varies. We've definitely seen that. We do the hybrid work stuff as well, and we find that works really well. One thing we do say is that one day a week everyone's in the office. So on a Tuesday is our everyone in the office day. So at least there's one day where if we need to hold a company-wide meeting, we haven't got people coming in remotely and stuff.
Yeah.
So that works quite well. Talk to us a little bit about SaaS. Obviously, software as a service. It's been a thing for like 25 years.
Yeah.
But the growth in that sector, I mean, everything's gone SaaS, from business to business software to consumer products.
Yeah.
How have you joined Venatrix when initially, not this time around?
Round 2, 2018.
Right. Okay.
So nearly 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
but a lot of companies then, their tech stacks were still built on-prem a lot.
Yeah.
So I suppose then people were starting to look that SaaS is the only way forward. Where have you seen your clients specifically change, perhaps the way they're delivering tech to suit that SaaS? So have you worked with clients that we used to be this, now we're SaaS, so we need to build a specific team around that?
Probably not so much in that. I think maybe because we work with a lot of companies that are so early stage, they haven't had anything before that.
Wow.
I think
not like us old dogs. We've had 25 years, old server based.
But I think where the biggest difference has come from is the way that the SDRs have to sell SaaS. I think that's something that I've noticed the biggest change, that 5 years ago, I would be calling candidates, begging them to be like, come and see what an SDR role's about. And ultimately, SDRs were given a list of 600 companies. They had to find all the people that worked in those companies, and you just cold called. Whereas the biggest challenge now is you can't just bulk send out 3,000 emails. There's laws in place now where you can't do that.
There's a lot of changes coming as well. So by the time this podcast actually goes out, I think towards the end of Feb, Google and Yahoo obviously make some huge changes, which are just going to, I know a lot of recruitment businesses that are potentially going to suffer because of the way they mass market either a CV or a job spec or something like that. So they definitely have to change the way they do. So where do you see SDRs that you're moving that are used to working like that are going to have to change the way they do business? Definitely.
And I think the SDR role now is such a multi-channel strategic job that you can't just be email based or phone based. It has to be, you're sending an email, you're sending a personalized LinkedIn message, you're sending a voice note, you're making a cold call. You have to do all of it. So it's not just hiring someone that's going to come in and just be someone on a seat sat at a desk. It's someone that is actually going to have that ability to branch out of their comfort zone, think outside the box, what can I actually do to get in touch with that person? And I think there's going to be less of a spray and pray approach, and it be a lot more strategic of having a list of X amount of businesses that you want to go after and knowing a reason why you're calling all of those companies, not just pulling data off a system and then just cold calling for the sake of it.
And ironically, there's a lot of tech around to empower people to do that, a lot easier, specifically with LinkedIn. So you have a lot of, you have a lot of followers on LinkedIn, and, I think where we're seeing some of the AI, AI is such a broad term. We see some AI that's generally just making people lazy, but we see some really good sort of pieces of AI that we're sort of partnering with, some like Sourcewell and stuff, where it's that sort of applicant outreach, that automation of doing that, just to get sort of then. Is that something you qualify? Like if let's say I was the client and I said, Tara, I want a couple of SDRs, I need 2 SDRs in the next couple of months. But they need to be multi-channel. Is that something then you qualify with the applicant, like what tools they've used, how good are they on LinkedIn? Have they got a good following? Have they got a personal brand? Is that the kind of thing that clients look for?
So I'd say there's 3 types of SDRs. So first type is fresh out of university, no experience, have maybe done a placement yet. Second, pool of candidate is where they have gone and worked in marketing, or they've been an accountant for a year and they've realised that that isn't the path for them. So they've got some kind of commercial experience. And then the third one is people that have sales and SaaS sales experience. I think over the last well, definitely the last year, so many companies want people with experience, which I think companies are under pressure to lower ramp times, hire someone and have them performing within 2 months. So there's just less risk associated with the placement if someone has made a cold call before, for example. It also makes it a lot easier for a company to make a judgment on whether that person is going to be good based on the questions that they're asking them. So if you're speaking to a salesperson and saying like, so what does your cadence look like? What's the most successful email that you send? How do you open your cold call? If they can't answer those questions,
it's a bit of a
red flag. So we're definitely seeing that we've had to change the way that we're interviewing people, especially with experience, to ask those tailored questions around like who's your ideal profile that you'd want to be reaching out to? What's the most common objection that you face? How do you overcome that? Like actually digging into what they do on a day-to-day basis, because I think people can blag a lot of things on their CV.
No,
so actually,
not in sales.
Not in sales. So getting that actual realistic, what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis is really important.
What does your day routine look like? How do you structure your day? How do you keep on top of this?
Yeah, we even have candidates now that will send outreach personalised videos to clients ahead of interviews to introduce themselves. So it's like the amount people are going above and beyond for an interview is just...
So what would that look like? My name's Paul. I've got an interview with you next week. Just thought I'd introduce myself, sort of pre-interview.
Something like that. Wanted to introduce myself. Really excited. Let me know if there's anything I want to prepare. People even now like put together like a prospecting list of businesses that they would prospect if they were an SDR at that company, and take it to the interview.
So a lot of companies will look at like, what's your first, what's your 3-month plan look like initially, 6-month plan, etc. Did you think that makes your job easier when the applicant's contacting your client direct, or don't you like that?
I think it can work in both ways. Sometimes it's like, how am I ever going to find a candidate that's as good as you if they're hiring too, because someone sets the benchmark really high. And then sometimes you do feel, am I losing control, because there's that relationship now between the candidate and the client, and has it taken away that excitement if they start talking about logistical? That I try and keep that separate, that I arrange the interviews. So there's no like logistical conversations there. But I also think it comes down to your relationship with your clients. So I now speak to a lot of my clients on Slack. So I add them as a team member on Slack to then have that relationship with them where they can contact me, I can contact them. And I find that that's been working really well as well, to like keep that control over what's going on in the process.
As much as it is a formal process, isn't it, sending people to interview, but actually if you want to build that personal, relationship, then having that less formal sort of communication, like a Slack message or a Teams message or LinkedIn message, whatever it is. And that's where I think, AI shouldn't take over like that part, because AI is taking over a lot of that automated communication. But actually what we've talked about before is how that can really destroy someone's personal relationship with, we all hate like chatbots. You go onto a website and it's like, chatbot pops up. Is this going to be a real person? It's just automated. Just want to speak to someone real. So having that personal brand is powerful.
And back on the like software side of it and overtaking things, like we use Sourcewell and I absolutely love it. I couldn't do my job without it. But sometimes when you're sending that automated email, you think, is that going to stand out? And sometimes I do end up adding in more cadences than just what's on my Sourcewell cadence, because if that person's just accepted me on LinkedIn, I'll then send them a message straight away rather than waiting until it comes up in my cadence on Sourcewell. So I think, again, you have to follow that cadence because it keeps you on the straight and narrow. But again, you still have to go above and beyond to stand out from the technology that everyone's using.
I think from a hiring manager's point of view, they're so obvious, those that are like automated. And it's like, as soon as you click accept on the thing, it's like, ding, and you're like, you read the message, it's like, This is, no, ignore. And now I seem to be just ignoring more or declining like requests, because I think if it's a lead generation company or something like that, I know what's coming. Like, what's the point? Do it every day. Obviously, the SaaS industry has grown massively. I think it's projected to hit 230 billion by the end of 2024. So it's a really good sort of industry, obviously, to be in. And I think what you were saying a minute ago as well is, what clients look for to people to hit the ground running. I assume that's why you joined One Up Sales as well, because you knew the recruitment industry, right? You had that recruitment experience, and that's typically what we would look for as well. We would look for someone that understands the recruitment process, and depending on what level, we might look for someone that's been in temp recruitment for a few years. That's a bit more hardcore and spitting sawdust than someone that's done IT perm, for example.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, I know it was only a short stint you did there, and I don't want to focus it, but did you feel that really helped you, obviously understanding your clients, and did you feel like the clients bought into you a bit more as well, because you're like, I've been where you are, that kind of
thing? I thought like it helped me so much. And I, even when I left One Up, I did a recorded Zoom call with the CEO there to go through some recruitment terms to help SDRs that they hire that haven't worked in recruitment. So I just think it's sometimes the lingo and the pain that managers go through of like managing a team. How do you track those KPIs, which One Up helps businesses to do? So it definitely helped me from working in recruitment and being able to actually empathize. So I think like if I'd gone and sold a fintech solution to CFOs, I'm not a CFO, and I never will be. So I think I've really struggled to get behind that. But some people can just pick those things up. They learn that lingo, they fully throw themselves into it and understand that pain. But I think I have to like live through it to then be able to resonate with it.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I mean, what we've seen is, people we take on with that, even a year's experience or 7 months experience in recruitment, they might have had some really basic training, but they understand like the basic applicant journey, company client journey, creating a job, making a placement, terms and conditions, rebate fees, all of that kind of stuff. So Tara, I see personally quite a lot of companies that struggle to sort of attract the right sort of type of applicant, if you like, or candidate to their business. Tell us about some of the challenges some of your clients are facing in either attracting candidates or getting them through the process of interview or matching their requirements.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges at the moment, and especially from the start of January, has been there are more jobs on the market. So what a company is actually doing to stand out. The biggest challenge that we always find is finding absolute superstars for these businesses. But now there are less superstars than there are opportunities. So what a company's doing to actually make themselves stand out in those processes. I think the other thing is the interview process that the company is running can also either make them shine or can be a reason why a company doesn't join. So a reason why a candidate doesn't join the company of either the process goes on for too long, they're not meeting enough like critical people in the business that are giving them a good idea of what it would be like to work there. The other thing that I think is having a problem of like that onboarding stage, so once they've actually hired them, is the hybrid working, the remote working, because we all started our careers in the office. I sat next to my CEO every single day for the first year, which was terrifying.
Learned a lot though, you must.
But that is where you learn. And I think even now in the office, you hear everyone on the phone, you pick up a one-liner from one person, even people that have been there for 2 weeks, you're like, oh, that sounded really good. And I think that is what these entry-level people, salespeople, recruitment people are missing when they think, oh no, I need to work from home, need my well-being. Yes, it is important, but you're not learning like you would in the office. And I think that is what companies are struggling with, that then people aren't being ramped up on time. And there's that, it's like it's taking everyone much longer to actually learn.
So do you find that the client demand is that perhaps they want a grad, but they want someone that's willing to come into the office, and perhaps you're talking to grads and they're like, well, I don't want to go into the office. I've got all these other opportunities that are full remote working.
Yeah. And then I think you get into a conversation where it's like X company are letting me work remote and they're paying me 30k, and then X company want me to go into the office 3 days a week, which is 32k, which is going to cost me X amount a year to get into the office, etc. I've got a dog, I need the dog to go to dog care, and all of those added costs. And then you're getting into a very like logistical conversation where you're aligning priorities of what is important to you in this job search. Is it having a remote opportunity, or is it about going on a journey with a company to help them become a unicorn? So I think it also then differentiates the candidates of, do you just want a job that's remote to do the job? Or do you actually want to join that company because they're in that sector that's growing X amount every single month, year, and you want to be that founding member SDR that goes on that journey? So I think it helps you to understand more about that candidate and like what they're looking for, and also like what's going to be right for your client as well.
Yeah, and I suppose it's then just, you know, from the recruiter's point of view, it's actually, we don't think you're right for this company.
Yeah.
Because actually they're looking for someone to immerse themselves in their culture, you know, be in the office, bounce off people, not just be an SDR actually.
Yeah.
Get yourself involved and, you know, learn the product well, work with the product development team, have your input in all of this kind of stuff, you know, care about customer success even, you know, because if you can prove yourself to be that person that is, you know, you just become more valuable and you become more rounded as an individual. And I think sitting behind a screen as an SDR, and it's like, I've got my call list, I've got my LinkedIn, obviously it's not one screen now, is it? Probably multiple screens, but, and then you're just sort of full remote. That's really, I think that's really difficult. You know, for training, I mean, there's come up sort of quite a lot as well, you know, how do we train a new starter? I think I would struggle with both training and managing someone full remote. So when we talk to you about recruitment after this, what we're looking for, that wouldn't be something high on my agenda.
Yeah. And I think you have to be so transparent about that from the beginning.
Yeah.
We have companies that say, oh yeah, they can work from home a couple of days, but actually once you say that to someone, that goes into like, that's their expectation. So when you start moving the goalposts of, no, actually you can only work from home on a Friday for the first month, it starts to annoy people. And I think you lose that transparency. So it needs to be like, this is how we do it. This is what we do. And like, if you join the business, this is how it's going to work. And you can't move those goalposts. It would have to be like, we come into the office 5 days a week, 4 days a week.
And your clients must have changed their view on that more so recently, because, you know, we go back 2 years, it was like, it was acceptable for everyone to be full remote all the time because bloody COVID. I mean, we try not to mention it every episode, but it is the kind of cause of that stuff. Have you seen your clients change things throughout the process as well? So maybe it was a longer process than intended, but is it the kind of thing that actually, hang on, you said they could work from home 2 days a week. Now all of a sudden your policy's changed and it's 1 day a week or anything like that?
Yeah, so we went to, well, I wasn't there, but 2 members of my team went to SaaS Stock in Dublin at the end of last year. And they said the most common thing that everyone was talking about was everyone going back into the office 3-4 days a week. And I guess we aren't as the clients aren't changing it through the interview process for the candidate. So the candidate's already like fully immersed in the business whilst this change is going on. But I think people do seem to be well up for it in London. There's that culture of going out for drinks after work. You've got team lunches. Lots of companies now link it to incentives. So if you have booked X amount of meetings on Monday and Tuesday, you get a free breakfast on Wednesday in the office. So I think people are trying to make that environment that people do then want to come into the office. But
them back in.
I think it is hard if you've set that rule, but people are in that routine and people's lives have changed since COVID, of then having to like backtrack of like, no, actually we do need you in the office 4 days a week and this is how this is going to work now. So we do get people reaching out to us being like, my company have changed how this works. I want a remote role now, for example.
I think one of, from our own experience, one of the things that really benefited us getting people back into the office was sort of being transparent with the benefits, like why it's important for us to have people in the office and where we feel like the benefits are, where, and back that up with data as well, is always good. So if you're talking to clients, it's like, okay, these candidates are now questioning why you want us into the office, because it's not going to be long, in my view, where companies are going to say actually 5 days a week in the office. It's coming. I think a lot of the sort of big financial, the financial industry, insurance industry are all going that way already, so the rest will follow. I think depending on the company culture and lifestyle and how corporate they are, but most corporate businesses I think would be back in the office 5 days a week. In terms of skills, obviously SaaS is evolving, skills are evolving, technology is evolving all the time. What are the kind of things I want you to share some secrets now. What are the things? Yeah, what are the things that clients are looking for? Most from a skill set. Is it more sort of I suppose from an SDR point of view, you've obviously got to be personable, about brand and that kind of stuff. But in terms of tech, I suppose in particular, is there any particular skills that they're looking for? Is there a big demanding anything in particular at the moment?
So I think one thing that I think sales and recruitment is really, really difficult. So we can generalize this between SDRs, sales, recruitment. One of the most important things that I look for is, have they ever done something that's been challenging, they've then failed at it, but they've kept on doing it? So have they done sport, played football, broken their leg, made a comeback from it? Have they learned a musical instrument or something that is difficult, that isn't just going to university and getting through it and coming out the other side?
Does a recorder count in terms of misquiz?
It's challenging. I think it's more challenging for everyone else to have to listen to the recorder. But the thing with doing a sales role when you haven't done it before is the level of rejection, and the amount of rejection you get is savage, of people not answering, people not turning up to demos that you've booked. It is a really difficult job to do. So if you've never done anything in your life where you've faced that rejection and struggled with something but kept on going, how do you even know this is going to be right for you? So that's one thing that we always look for. Resilience,
number one.
I try not to use that word because I just feel like it is such a generic word that everyone uses, but I do. It is resilience. I think the other thing is discipline. So I always really like to understand what people's days, how they structure their days and their weeks. So if people are like, oh, I just wake up at 9, I start work at 9:15, I just roll out of bed. There's nothing wrong with that. But is that showing much discipline? Is that person going to come into your business and have a day plan ready by 8:30, even though they don't start work till 9:30, and are they actually mentally thinking about what that day is going to bring for them, what challenges they're going to be thrown, and what they actually want to achieve? Or are they just doing this job because their friend does this job and they also want to get paid that amount of money?
Yeah, the basic salary is all right, I can live on that, that's fine.
Yeah, so what is that actual motivation? Then the third thing that I think is really important is the rapport building side of it. So when I'm speaking to a candidate, can I imagine myself going for a drink with that person on a Thursday after work? Would I actually want to spend time with them? Would a client want to sit next to them at the Christmas party? Because when these companies are so small and the SDR is going to be forming that culture for the whole business, they can't hold a conversation. One, they're not going to be able to hold one internally, but they also can't hold it with a prospect. So I'd say those are the three main things that I look for.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And like you say, especially in small businesses, when we've seen that personality fit is really important. And like you said, if you don't having a conversation with them, when you felt, or they come across as awkward, you don't want that. Well, I don't want that person representing our business and our company. How do you feel candidates can prove those skills? Obviously, you can ask them the question, but like you said, there's a lot of blagging in the industry, right? So how can they get that to come across it in an interview? And what would the difference be? Because a lot of interviews we've talked about might be remote initially. So
Yeah.
how can they make their their personality come across?
So I definitely think you can tell when someone is committed to a process. So quite often when we're dealing with VPs of sales, CROs, CEOs of these businesses that are having meetings with investors, they're so busy. They're not going to have 8 different interview times for 2 candidates to come and meet them. So sometimes we only have 2 times and the candidate has to make that time work with that business. So I think that commitment to the process does show you how serious that candidate is about that job. And sometimes there are going to be times where they can't make something work. But if you are trying to arrange an interview and someone doesn't reply to you for 8 hours and they vanished off the face of the earth, and then they come back to you like, oh, sorry, I was doing X. Yes, I can't do that time. Can you get me another time? It's not giving off that feeling of you're taking this job search really seriously and you want this job. So I think like that side from a like commitment, making things happen, people are going seriously above and beyond for interviews now. So I've had candidates put together prospecting lists of businesses that they would prospect if they got through to, if they got the job at that company. I've had people put together personalized email videos introducing themselves to a business ahead of an interview. And those are always the candidates that end up getting the job.
They're just making themselves stand out, aren't they? I'd love that, by the way, if anyone is personalized video.
It's also showing the company that like that's what you would do to a prospect. Like, how are you making the interviewer feel in that interview process? Because they're busy, you're busy. It is a 2-way street. But if you make that interviewer feel like, wow, you are investing so much time in this, going to make them think that's what you're going to do to their prospects as well, which is exactly what they want. So I think you cannot go into interviews anymore, just turn up and think you can blag it. You have to go in like showing you've got something.
Do you mean you can't just look at the website on the train on the way in and just remember those high level stats for that? Check them out on LinkedIn for 20 minutes before. We've said the same as well in terms of people that are trying to BD us or cold call us or whatever. If they haven't gone to the effort of finding who the person they need to speak to or what it is we actually do, why am I going to trust you to go and generate leads for us or whatever? It's a terrible way to start.
Yeah, and like we've even had candidates that like will find the prospect's the interviewer's mobile number, and then we'll cold call them ahead of the interview saying like, just wanted to cold call you, really excited to meet you, anything you want me to prepare for the interview, like let me know. And
where did you get this number?
Well, that's what they're like, did you give them my number?
No, that's how good
they love it. They're like, wow, that person is trying to do something to make themselves stand out.
Yeah. And do you as a business, do you tend to try and encourage people to do that, or do you just kind of let the cream rise to the top type scenario?
I think what we have actually been reflecting on it recently is that it's really important to give people feedback through the interview process, but ultimately if you are coaching them to the extent that you are spending hours and hours and hours coaching this person to do a task, or you've told them to send a personalized video, if that's not what they're like as a person,
you don't want to.
They're not actually gonna last in the job. So to an extent, we will, if a candidate's been given a task, we'll look at the task once they've done it and could say like, oh, maybe add a logo here, for example. But I think it's the candidates that do it off their own back that actually are the ones that get the job.
I assume that might be the grads you help more so than perhaps someone going for a more senior position, because they should obviously know better.
You'd hope they could get together a cadence. But I think also if I say like, oh, a previous candidate sent an email video and that went down really well, if the candidate's like, oh no, I don't want to do that, there's no point forcing someone to do that, because that's obviously not what they're like, well, especially as a real candidate.
That's what's going to make them stand out in the process, and that's what the client wants.
Yeah.
Fair enough, you might have another client that's not perhaps getting as much interest from applicants, and it might just be the case, oh, why don't you apply to this company? It might be better suited, I guess.
Yes, definitely. And I think also being really if you've explained what the market looks like. So I quite often show different people's LinkedIn profiles of, look at this person, look what they're posting about. If the cogs aren't turning of like, wow, social selling something that I should think about doing, it's again like, how seriously are they taking this job search, and are they trying to stand out from the 400 other people that have applied for this job?
Yeah, it leads us on to the next question, actually, in terms of retention. So, what we see on LinkedIn quite a lot, actually, is, we'll see these big announcements that so-and-so's joined this company, or they've moved from so-and-so to go to, I won't mention names, so I don't want to upset anyone, we moved from so-and-so to so-and-so, and then 6 months down the line, it's like, oh, I'm leaving. I'm not digging you out, the one in sales gig, because I understand that. But particularly in, recruitment software sectors, it is quite rife for it in terms of people move, and they move a lot. And it might be, oh, they've gone over here, and then 6 months later, oh, actually, I've gone to join this place now.
Yeah.
And throughout their career, I've seen individuals represent 5-6 different recruitment CRMs, and it's like, how can you hold credibility in front of the same people? 1 minute you're saying, oh, this is the best software, and then you're cold calling them 3 months later to say, no, this is the best software. It's like, well, hang on a sec, so you told me it was that. How can companies, I appreciate people will change jobs, of course they do. I mean, I'm not a good example of that. I'm part of the furniture here. I got there's personal reasons behind that. I need structure in my life. I don't like change. But how can businesses ensure that they're retaining, once you've found that great SDR, they're obviously high in demand at the moment. Mm-hmm. If someone headhunts them out of a role, or they get approached on LinkedIn, how can companies try and retain that talent within their business? So
this is something that I was actually talking about in the office yesterday, because I won a client from LinkedIn, and when they go to offer the candidate the job, I do all the offers for all my clients, but they actually do the offer where they do an entire presentation that walks the candidate through the journey of the company, the part that this person's going, that SDR is going to play in the business, what's it going to look like. Every single candidate gets shares that are decided by the CEO. Yeah. And I actually think we haven't had a job offer, touch wood, rejected yet from this company. And I think it's because the candidates feel so invested in that journey. So I think some companies hire an SDR and there isn't actually a need for an SDR. It just feels like a tick box exercise of, oh, everyone else is doing it, we should also do it. So I think you've got to have that reason of like, why do we actually need an SDR? Have we worked out what our total addressable market is? Do we know exactly what our ICP is and what this SDR should be going after? Because if you hire someone and there isn't that structure for them internally, they're going to be searching for that structure because they're not going to be feeling successful. There also isn't going to be that clear progression path. So having that plan for that SDR of, right, in 6 months' time, we want you to have booked 40 meetings that have qualified. If you have done that, you then become a senior BDR. Once you have then booked another 46 meetings that then qualify, you then become a junior AE. But in that time of being a senior BDR, you will get to close some of the smaller deals, for example. That progression plan is then laid out so transparently for them. I think where I've seen people and people have contacted me is when some SaaS companies make SDRs interview for an AE job. So it doesn't matter how many meetings they've booked, they can only move into an AE role when a vacancy opens up. So another AE leaves. It creates that feeling of uncertainty. Like lots of people don't want to be an SDR or BDR for the rest of their lives. They want to do it for 12 to 18 months and then be able to move through. But I think the main reason why people leave is there isn't that clear path of progression for them to be able to get to. And there isn't that transparency of what are they doing on a day-to-day basis and where's that helping the company get to.
And you must get a lot of satisfaction placing somebody in that SDR role and seeing them smash their way through
the best feeling
through a career path
ever. And I'm friends with so many of my candidates, and you see them get these promotions, you bump into them in the pub on a Friday and you're like, oh my gosh, I helped you when you graduated from university 5 years ago, and you're now sales manager at a SaaS business that's just raised 55 million in Series C funding. Like, it is unbelievable. But I definitely think it's that progression that keeps people, or just people get bored, don't they, if there isn't that next goal.
Yeah, I think it's that, what we find is that ongoing support, that ongoing training, encourage them to sort of be better, encourage them to learn new things or be progressive, which I think, again, it's quite obvious to pick up on someone that wants that. And even something you said earlier in terms of, are they just rolling out of bed and getting online at 9 o'clock? Or actually, this person's motivated. They're getting up at 6, they're going to the gym for an hour, and then they're sort of walking the dog, they're getting stuff done before their day starts. And I think that is important, because it takes me a long time to wake up. Actually, I couldn't wake up like 20 minutes before I needed to be online and just start working. I need a good, I need a session in the gym. I need or take the kids to school, whatever it might be that morning, depending on what day it is. We always find that like you said, keeping people engaged and actually giving them career path, giving them motivation to learn new things and encouraging that. And I think that's it's the business and the brand's responsibility, but also line managers play a massive part in that. Checking in with them regularly. And again, hark back to it, but that is so much easier if they're in the office.
100%. And I think when I look at companies that have been able to retain their staff, it is those companies that have the massive office in London. There's all of the team are in there 4 days a week, and there is that culture and that atmosphere, because you pick each other up when it does get really tough. But also I think it's so inspiring being surrounded by high performers that are doing well, that it makes you want to get to that stage that they've got to. So I think, I definitely think being in the office helps. And people don't enjoy doing, people want to be doing training in person where it's fun, it's collaborative. You're doing a cold calling session, but you're next to your best friend at work. It just makes it a nicer environment.
Yeah, a bit of banter. I like banter. What do you see customers doing in terms of like external factors? Because sales is a tough gig, and there's a lot that could go on politically, globally, economically, to impact people's buying habits. And what we said, previously is, things like COVID, Brexit, wars in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Some clients will be like, we're not investing in tech. And we've seen, sales go from up here to, have a massive fall off when there's been pandemics or whatever. How do you think companies are dealing with that? And is there much understanding? Because we've seen some companies be quite brutal, not hit target, off you go. There could be good talent, but they're just having a bit of a hard time. How do you feel like clients are handling that?
So I think companies are definitely being more cautious. So typically we've used to find most businesses would hire 2 SDRs at a time. You onboard them together, they ramp up together, and if one of them doesn't work out, you've still got one. Now people are only really taking the risk on one. So we're seeing a lot more when we're winning business, it is just for one SDR, whereas we used to be like, right, we want 5 SDRs to all start together in a month's time. So I think that's happening. Maybe that could also be from a standpoint of that they don't have enough resources to be able to invest and train someone up. That is the SDR manager also still doing an SDR job with a quota? That could also, it's all hands on deck now. So that could also be a factor. I think it's a difficult one. I don't know how many people you haven't hit target, let go. But I think it's when I speak to clients about the attitude of the candidate, I have heard of people being let go because they're doing other tasks and they won't pick up the phone. Whereas I think if you've got that attitude of you're still really, really trying, but you're going to take a bit longer, then you're given a bit more of a chance. I think it's more when you're like, oh, I'm just going to send some emails before I make any cold calls. And you're putting off that. The best way to book a meeting is picking up the phone. If you're not doing that, then I think that's where there's the problem. But I think that's something you can't change in a person. Whereas if someone is really, really trying, at least there is that coachability factor.
Yeah. And if they're if they're motivated, like we said earlier, to do that,
Yeah.
then that's easier, and that'd be pretty harsh, I guess, if you saw someone was knocking their pan out, working like 110%.
Yeah.
Just that, sorry, you didn't hit quota this much, you got to go. But we do see companies doing it. Interesting what you said about the sort of reduction in sort of SDRs. So again, something we've seen a lot when some of these tech companies take funding.
Yeah.
It's like, right, now we need to sell more, so we're going to take on SDRs. I think a lot of the time people do that because it's like, right, it will take us the same amount of time to train one person as it does 5.
Yeah.
More salespeople, more sales. Now, that's not always the case.
And that's the thing. And a lot of companies now, a lot of people think the AE role is now going to go into a full sales cycle role. So some companies have actually just got rid of the SDR division, and the AEs are now doing all of their prospecting, all of their booking meetings, and then closing the deal, because some enterprise companies found that with it being such a long sales cycle, the SDRs didn't fully understand the technology enough to be booking good enough meetings. So it was actually then they got rid of the SDR function, and now the AEs do all of their own self-sourcing and booking of their own meetings. So that is another take that some companies have taken of.
It's kind of where we're at. And we did that because of COVID, and because the industry was changing, and because we knew these AEs and they had the ability, because they've come from sort of SDRs a lot of the time as well. They know how to do it, and they've now got years of experience under their belt in terms of product, in terms of industry knowledge.
Yeah.
And bringing an SDR in with little to no experience actually can, prohibit that, that client journey, that buying journey.
Definitely. And I've also had companies that are now making the SDR do the whole sales cycle as well. So the SDR goes to all of the meetings. They actually they do the first meeting with the AE on the call, but they lead it. Right. And the AE gives them specific coaching and training. Like, they very much work together. So I think it also depends on the strategy of the SDR to AE relationship. Is it a one-to-one relationship? Is it that the SDR's booking meetings for 8 AEs and it's just done on a round robin with no personalization? So I think if it's that one-to-one, it's a lot easier for the AE to then coach the SDR of right, let's go after these businesses together. How are we going to work this out together?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, to be honest. In terms of future trends or shifts, do you sort of see anything, or is there any of your clients talking about anything on the horizon that you feel like is going to make a big change? We've obviously already talked to death about sort of remote working. We think that's going to be a change. Do you see any sort of other changes? It could just be a no. No, we don't.
I think it is the year of the rise of the LinkedIn influencer.
Great time for you.
I've already risen. No, joking.
2.2 million impressions.
Yes, in the last year, which is amazing. But impressive. I do think one of the things that I love the most about LinkedIn is when I see people that have got a SDR role and then they are posting every single day, building their brand, they're commenting, they're sharing useful information. And it is a daunting place when you do a post and you think, oh my gosh, I haven't got any likes. But I just think people that actually put themselves out there and start doing that will do really, really well. And I think even if they got made redundant because of another COVID situation and what they were selling, there was no need for it. They've got that brand to be able to support them to be able to get another job. So I definitely think that's going to be a huge thing. And I think cold calling is coming back. So do I think everyone will start picking up the phone a lot more and just using it to aid all of the other channels.
Who would have thought that?
I know.
5 years ago, it's cold calling's dead. And it's it's really not now.
Not.
And it did die off for a bit because people just didn't like the amount of calls. It's just going to go like that.
Yeah.
More people are going to start cold calling. The less emails and inboxes that people are going to receive. Then people are going to get peed off with getting too many calls.
Yeah.
And then it's going to go back to things. So I think that's always going to be a bit of an up and down trend until the telephone dies, I guess.
Yeah. But I think if you use them in the call and the email, and you actually really get that right. And I think that's what it's going to be, this like multi-channel approach. I don't think you'll be able to just get away with cold calling or just get away with email or LinkedIn. I think it's being able to use all of those
channels. Yeah. The same, and this is where, you know, to me, I head up sales and marketing here because they're so intertwined. You know, it's both multi-channel outreach to prospects, and it's whether that's content based or SDR or you know, cold calling based. It's use all of these things that we have to get our message out and get those people to look at us. And let's get a couple of influencers on the podcast to help us get that reach.
I also think it's like small things of, I now use the bell button on LinkedIn to get a notification when certain people post that I'm really trying to get in touch with that I can't or won't respond to me. But then like every time they do a post, I can like and comment on it, because doing that does make people feel good, that then they're getting noticed. Well, you're getting noticed. They're gonna start having that relationship. So I think those are my like trends that I think will happen this year.
100%. I totally agree with that. And I think where we're seeing, you know, technology will always back that up as well. So what we're seeing now as well in, you know, specifically in our sector is the AI tech is now evolving around more telephone based. So obviously started off, you know, you had your standard sort of document parsing and your language models. You know, we've just integrated with a company called Squire, and what they do now is they take a transcribed call, and they will basically split that data out. You know, so if you're having a really decent telephone conversation with someone, it's looking at the tone of that, and it's looking at how things are discussed, and it's spitting that out into your CRM. So it's automatically helping you. So if you're talking to an applicant about, you know, qualifying them around their salary expectations, their preferences in terms of remote working, hybrid working, all that kind of stuff, you then as a recruiter, or if this is a resourcer doing it, haven't got to go and bang all those notes in, or it's not just lost in a comment, it's actually put in specific fields within the CRM. So it's really speeding up, you know, time, you know, admin time for users, which is where, you know, if AI can bring that sort of support for the role. So it's not like you're still having that personal touch point, but actually AI in the background is doing all that donkey work for you in terms of, you know, and then you couple that with like good CV parsing. So it's displaying, you know, from any sales role. You know, the worst part of it generally is put your comments on the CRM,
but no one ever does that. But I totally agree with you. I really hope that businesses don't try and replace salespeople with AI, and it is really used to aid people and what they're doing to make their lives easier.
I don't think it will happen, but I think what we will see is perhaps some teams that are this big at the moment just all of a sudden go to that, because actually we now don't need 50 people, because what we've done is our top 20 people are now freed up to do a little bit
more.
And if those people are the ones we were talking about earlier that are up at 6 o'clock in the morning, got to get up at 6. They're motivated. If someone's motivated to do that extra, that's extra money. We'll do the extra work for extra money.
Definitely. And I also think post-COVID, well, I think in COVID, some businesses were lucky and did really, really well. And actually it's when everyone's like, oh, the market's, and I know I said it earlier, but like, oh, the market was tough for recruitment last year. Like, that is just life. And I think people that are like, oh, I didn't hit my target because the market was really tough. That's not an excuse. Like, it is tough for everyone, but like people are doing it. So what are you doing to make that happen? So I think it's like, I think some people will also drop out of sales who realize that, oh, it was fine in COVID and it was easy and it was remote. And
it was a bit of a boom.
Yeah, there was a boom and you were like riding the wave of luck. But actually, this is reality. Like, it is a savage, hard job, and like unless you're well up for it and going above and beyond to make it work, like you are going to be gone, whether that's your decision or the company's decision.
I think a lot of that, you know, having worked here for so long and working with obviously sales, marketing, customer success, but also product development, R&D, you know, what what we will always look at is, you know, how well are we closing business?
Yeah.
But also, why are we losing business in terms of either clients, you know, or prospects that, you know, we get right to the end and then actually, no, we've lost it because of this. Now, if that reason is just price or they weren't closed well, big red flag for the salesperson. But actually, if it's they specifically went with this bit of tech because they offered this bit of functionality, then actually that helps us then drive that roadmap.
Yeah.
So it's really important for us to capture all of that data the whole way through the process, from the initial qualification call right through to obviously trying to close the business. And thereafter, you know, we're constantly gathering data from clients about what they want to see coming in. And again, that voice transcriber that I was just talking about, that come because clients were demanding it. And it's like, we found this app. Can you look at integrating with it? So I think as long as they're, you know, for salespeople that are in a position where perhaps they're losing business, actually they're backing it up with data. Well, here's why. It's not just lost because, I couldn't get hold of them. Or, all right, if they couldn't get hold of them and they can prove that I sent them 20 emails, found his personal mobile number, went to his house, then fair enough. But you know, okay, that's interesting. I just want to talk to you lastly, because I appreciate you're very busy, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. Obviously, you're a key marathon runner. Lisbon. Yes. You've got London this year as well.
April.
Yeah, which is, I can do a marathon. I'm not built for running. I've done a few 5Ks. I've done a couple of tough mudders, but yeah, marathons, no chance. Or I'll be
tough mudders, tough.
Yeah, it is tough, but it's not just about the running.
Well, I'm sorry. When we did it, I was not climbing over those like vertical walls. So yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. You know, me running now is just I'm just too heavy footed. I can't. So it's very admirable that you do these marathons. What do you think in terms of marathon running, I suppose? How has that influenced your approach to talent acquisition? You've already actually mentioned some of this in terms of, you know, if someone's motivated to get up. I know we joked a little bit about it, but in terms of building relationships within tech startups and things like that, how do you feel marathon runners running?
My little
how's it kept you
my
motivated?
cult of marathon runners in the SaaS world. So I think for me it's like it is a discipline mindset thing that the last thing I do at night is check my emails, check LinkedIn. It's the first thing I look at in the morning, and when I go for that run, no one can contact me or like if I've done a cold calling session before and then go for a run, you've then got your phone ringing whilst you're running, but it more or less, it's that time when no one can get a hold of me. I can't check my phone while I'm running. And it is that time to switch off, which I do need because I am a control freak. I don't like doing handovers and anyone like taking over my stuff even when I go away. I do think it's great for rapport building. I post about it loads on LinkedIn. And when I jump on calls with clients, I mean, they mention it. My clients sponsor me for like when I'm doing runs and stuff. So it definitely helps in that rapport building, but I definitely think it's a mental mindset thing for me of just being able to switch off and not think about, well, I do usually think about work, but just not actually having to proactively do anything, just step away from the desk and take half an hour to just like process what's going on. So I definitely find it really useful from that side. But yeah, it's a, even though some people hate it, it is good rapport building.
I think people love that sort of stuff on LinkedIn as well. You know, if you're ever struggling for content, just pick yourself running.
Well,
Thumper
does really well. We did
post a picture. It should be fine.
We were like analysing what LinkedIn content did really well over the quarter, and all of the photos were outside and running, and I was like, I can't keep posting running content. I was like, people must think I'm the most annoying person in the world, because and I do think it is annoying that if you sometimes when my alarm goes off, you are just like, do I have to get up? And then you see on LinkedIn that someone's like, I've run 500 kilometers before work this morning, and you're like, shut up. So I think you do have to take it with a pinch of salt on LinkedIn. And like, obviously when I'm posting like, I've done 19 kilometers before work, well, I've probably got back from the run, the dog's like done a poo on the floor. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not all that perfect. And I think sometimes like LinkedIn is being seen of, oh my gosh, your life is perfect. You were able to do that before work. Like, how do you get up that early? You've won so much business, that people do only shout about the good things. And I think it's really important to remember that like it is hard out
Maybe
there.
you should break that stigma. Maybe I want to see the next one.
Me sobbing.
Big sweaty mess.
But someone reached out to me on LinkedIn and was asking for some advice about breaking into America, and we jumped on a call, and I was like, yeah, like it's really, really hard. And he was like, I'm really surprised that you said that, because I think on LinkedIn you have this like aura that like it is just perfect. And I was like, oh my God, no, like it's far from it. So I think that is something that everyone does just shout about, like, oh, I've been on a run, I've done this, I've done that. And actually, like, everyone is dealing with other stuff that isn't like, it's like Instagram. It's not like your perfect life on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and it is quite, you know, it's quite controversial that, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm old school, but I don't like putting my personal life on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Just because I like keeping my family separate, you know.
Yeah.
I obviously wouldn't put a picture of my children on LinkedIn, or the Sunday football team that I coach on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Whatever. And there might be a couple of, you know, sort of wins I've put on there, you know, in my personal life, but never that. But it does annoy me. Like I posted the cut. I'm not a regular poster on LinkedIn by any means. So I try and post a couple of times a week, and I'm in my calendars.
That's quite regular.
Yeah, I guess. But, you know, I see some people obviously 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, you know, I wish I had that time, or that, you know, I need to think about what I need to post. But where, you know, what annoyed me a bit last week, I put 2 posts out. One was about salt gritter. It was just
I bet it went viral on impressions.
And the other one was about AI in recruitment, and it was, you know, a snippet of the podcast with, you know, a separate guest. And yeah, the salt gritter did better, and I'm like, oh, LinkedIn. They both did okay, actually. I was pleased with the amount of impressions I got on both, but I just knew the salt gritter would get more than, you know, and like I said, everyone loves a picture of a dog.
A picture of a dog. Yeah. The other one that, and this is also like, I guess, with about like the highs and lows of life with posting, is whenever I've done a post around like, oh, I'm struggling with cold calling this week, or something of like, not that life is all good, they've also done really well. So I think it's like that vulnerability piece as well is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, best of luck with the London Marathon. Send us a link to your sponsor page, and we'll stick it
plug.
we'll stick it in the description. Big thanks to Tara for coming on, guys. Hope you've enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on your alerts so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.